What if I told you that one of the men who actually helped discover the fundamental building blocks of the physical universe, like the actual subatomic particles that make up literally everything around us, just walked away from it all at the absolute pinnacle of his career?
I mean, it sounds crazy,
It
right?
really does. Imagine being a world-class theoretical physicist at Cambridge University.
Right.
You are surrounded by the greatest scientific minds on the planet. You are dealing with the most rigorous, complex mathematics imaginable. And then, to the absolute shock of the secular academic world, you just resign your prestigious post.
Yeah, people were completely baffled.
And why? To become an ordained Anglican priest.
It is the kind of career pivot that completely, short circuits how modern society tells us we are supposed to view the
Yeah,
world.
exactly.
People simply could not process it.
Yeah.
How could a guy who maps out the invisible forces of quantum mechanics also stand at a pulpit and declare his belief in the bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ?
It doesn't compute for a lot of people.
No, it doesn't. To a lot of his peers, it seemed like intellectual
But
suicide.
for him, it was the exact opposite. His name was John Polkinghorne. And he didn't view his science and his faith as enemies at all.
Not even a little bit.
In fact, he won the Templeton Prize in 2002 precisely because he proved they are partners. And his story cuts right to the heart of a feeling that I think so many of us struggle with.
Oh, absolutely.
I want you to imagine a feeling for a second and see if this sounds familiar to you. You are sitting in the pew on a Sunday morning. The music is swelling, the sermon is deeply moving, and your heart feels completely anchored in the eternal truths of Scripture.
You feel incredibly close to God.
Right. You feel so connected. But then Monday morning rolls around,
Yeah.
your alarm goes off, you pour your coffee, and you head into the office or the laboratory, the classroom, or the hospital.
And suddenly it feels like you have to switch gears entirely.
Completely. You step into a world governed by spreadsheets, medical charts, biology textbooks, and quarterly earnings reports.
Right, and there is this quiet, almost invisible tension.
Yes, that tension.
It's the feeling that the faith you celebrated on Sunday and the cold, hard facts you're dealing with on Monday belong in two totally different compartments of your brain.
Like there is a solid brick wall right down the middle of your mind.
Exactly. On one side is your soul, and on the other side is your intellect. And society tells you to keep those two things far apart if you want to be taken seriously.
Well, welcome to this deep dive. Our mission today is to take a sledgehammer to that false wall.
I love that.
We want to show you that you do not have to leave your brain at the church door, and you certainly don't have to leave your faith in the parking lot when you go to work.
That is so important.
We are diving into a stack of notes, excerpts, and research centered on a groundbreaking book Polkinghorne wrote in 1986 called One World.
The interaction of science and theology.
Right. And I think it is important to assure everyone right up front, we are not doing a graduate-level physics seminar
Oh,
today.
definitely not.
Yeah.
We are going to avoid the dense academic jargon as much as possible.
Thank goodness, because I would be the first one lost.
Same here, honestly. The goal here is deeply practical.
Yeah.
We are looking at how this brilliant physicist's insights can profoundly deepen your Christian faith, inspire a greater love for Jesus Christ, and give you this immense, unshakable confidence that the universe we live in is a unified masterpiece created and sustained by God.
So where do we even begin dismantling this wall between the Sunday soul and the Monday mind? It seems like it all starts with the title of his book, right? This idea of one world.
Yeah, that is Polkinghorne's central thesis. He argues that science and theology are not locked in this zero-sum gladiator-style conflict where one has to destroy the other.
Okay.
Instead, they are complementary quests. They are exploring different aspects of the exact same reality.
The same reality.
Right. The source material sums this up beautifully with a simple phrase. Science asks how, theology asks why.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I've heard phrases like that before, but I always kind of struggle to picture what that actually looks like in practice.
Sure.
How do you ask two entirely different questions about the same thing without them competing?
Well, think about a boiling kettle on a stove.
Okay.
If you walk into my kitchen and ask me, why is that kettle boiling? I could give you a purely scientific answer.
Right, about the heat and stuff.
Exactly. I could tell you that thermal energy from the burner is agitating the water molecules, increasing their kinetic energy until they overcome atmospheric pressure and transition from a liquid state into a gas.
Wow. Okay, science lesson for the day.
Right, but that is the how. It is a completely accurate description of physical reality.
But it doesn't really answer the underlying question if I just wanted to know what you were doing.
Precisely. I could also answer your question by saying The kettle is boiling because I want a cup of tea.
Right.
That is the why. It reveals purpose, intent, and personal agency. Both those answers are 100% true.
So they aren't fighting for territory at all.
Exactly. The kinetic energy of the molecules doesn't disprove my desire for tea, and my desire for tea doesn't negate the laws of thermodynamics.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
They are describing the same event from two different necessary levels of inquiry.
Okay, let's use another analogy because this is where I think a lot of us get tripped up. Imagine you are standing in a magnificent ancient cathedral,
Okay, I can picture it.
and you are looking up at this massive, breathtaking stained glass window. The sun is shining through it, throwing all these brilliant red and blue colors across the stone floor.
Beautiful.
Now, a scientist can come along and analyze that window. They can tell you the exact chemical composition of the glass, the precise wavelengths of light passing through the different colored sections, and the structural integrity of the lead holding it all together.
Right, and that is the how. And honestly, it's fascinating.
It is.
It is entirely necessary to understand the mechanics of the window.
But the scientist, using only a spectrometer and a chemistry kit, cannot tell you what the picture actually means.
No, they can't.
The theologian, or the art historian in this case, comes along and says, look, this is a depiction of the prodigal son returning to his father. The artist made this to show the extravagant grace of God.
Yeah. That is the why. You need both perspectives to fully appreciate the reality of the window.
That is a wonderful illustration of what Polkinghorne calls critical realism.
Critical realism, what does that mean exactly?
It is the philosophical stance that both science and theology are seeking truthful descriptions of an objective, mind-independent reality that was created by God.
Okay.
It isn't just subjective feelings on one side and cold math on the other. Both are seeking truth. But to understand why this framework is so vital, we have to look at the two extreme ditches that people constantly fall into today.
What's the first ditch?
On the secular side, you have an error called reductionism.
Reductionism.
Yeah. This is the cultural push that says the stained glass window is nothing but silica, lead, and photons.
Just the physical parts.
Exactly. It reduces everything in the universe to its lowest physical components. The reductionist claims that if you understand the physics and the chemistry, you understand everything there is to know.
Any talk of purpose, meaning, or a divine artist is just a comforting fairy tale we invented because we are afraid of the dark.
Which is incredibly depressing when you think about it.
It really is.
It dismisses the most profound parts of human experience as just illusions.
It is a very bleak way to view the world.
Yeah.
But Christians often fall into the ditch on the completely opposite side of the road.
Oh, really?
Yes, and that error is called fideism.
Wait, fideism? Is that like blind faith?
Essentially, yes. Fideism is the attempt to isolate faith from reason entirely. It is the attitude that says, I don't need to look at the chemistry of the glass, and frankly, I don't want to.
Because it might ruin it.
Right. It's this fear that if I study the glass too closely, it might prove that the picture isn't beautiful anymore.
Wow.
It's a type of faith driven by a deep, unacknowledged fear that scientific discovery will somehow disprove God. Fideism retreats into a subjective, private, spiritual bubble.
Yeah.
It basically says, I just believe, don't confuse me with facts.
It's kind of the ignorance is bliss approach to theology, which honestly I've seen a lot of. You see people get really defensive when science is brought up, almost like they think God is fragile and needs us to protect him from a biology textbook.
Yes, and Polkinghorne vehemently rejects both of those extremes.
And blame him.
He says reductionism is blind to meaning, and fideism is afraid of facts. Neither of them honors the reality God has actually made.
So critical realism is the middle ground.
Right. Critical realism says God made the glass, God made the light, and God gave the meaning. We can and should study all of it with absolute confidence.
So practically speaking, how does realizing we only live in one world change the way a Christian approaches their day job?
It changes everything.
Let's say someone listening right now is an accountant or a mechanic or a software developer. How does this shift their daily perspective?
It revolutionizes it by completely destroying the myth of the secular job.
Oh, I like that. The myth of the secular job.
Right. If there is only one world, and it is entirely God's world, then the physical laws you are working with, the logic you are using, the materials you are handling, they are all part of his creation.
Yeah.
The same God who authored your salvation authored the laws of physics and mathematics.
So when a mechanic is diagnosing a busted transmission, They aren't stepping away from God to do something secular.
Not at all. They are interacting with the physical properties of metals, friction, and fluids that God himself designed.
Wow.
They are bringing order to a small piece of creation. They are operating in the same unified reality on Tuesday afternoon in the garage as they are when they are singing hymn on Sunday morning.
That is so incredibly freeing. It means your intellectual inquiry, your hard work, your study, none of it threatens your faith.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All truth is God's truth.
If you discover something true about biology or engineering, you have just discovered something true about God's artwork.
Yes.
But I feel like this brings up a massive historical roadblock.
Oh, how so?
Because for a long time, the scientific understanding of the world made it very difficult to see where God fit into the picture at all, unless he was, breaking the rules.
Ah, yes. You are hitting on a major historical shift in how we understand reality.
Yeah.
If we live in one world, how does God actually interact with the physical laws of that reality without constantly violating them?
Right. I mean, if the universe operates by these strict mathematical laws, how does God do anything? Does he just pause the laws of physics whenever someone prays?
To understand Polkinghorne's brilliant answer to this, we have to look back at the Enlightenment,
Okay, history lesson.
specifically at the legacy of Sir Isaac Newton.
The apple falling on the head guy.
Exactly. Newton was an undeniable genius. His laws of motion and his discovery of universal gravitation completely changed human history.
For sure.
But the philosophical worldview that philosophers built on top of his discoveries became known as the clockwork universe.
I've heard that term. It's the idea that the universe is just this giant, perfect mechanical clock.
A rigid, absolutely deterministic machine.
Deterministic,
Meaning
meaning
every single cause has a perfectly predictable effect. The belief was that if a superintellect knew the position and velocity of every particle in the universe at one specific moment, that intellect could calculate and predict the entire future with absolute certainty.
Oh, wow.
It was a closed, hermetically sealed system of cause and effect.
So everything that will ever happen is basically already locked in.
Yes. And the theological consequence of that scientific view was deism.
Deism.
Deism is the belief that God is the grand watchmaker. He built the clock. He rounded up at the beginning of time with the Big Bang or whatever mechanism you prefer.
Yeah.
And then he stepped back, folded his arms, and just watched it tick away.
So God is basically a retired engineer in that view.
Pretty much.
He did the initial work, but now he's completely hands-off.
He has to be hands-off in that framework. Because in a perfect, deterministic clockwork universe, if God wants to answer a prayer or intervene in history, he has to reach his hand into the gears of the clock and break the machine he just made. So in this view, there is no room for a personal, active, intimate God.
But the sources we were looking at point out that this is where Polkinghorne, drawing on his expertise as a quantum physicist, steps in with some incredibly good news.
The best news.
He points out that the Enlightenment actually got it wrong. The clockwork universe is a myth.
It is dead.
Yeah.
Modern physics has completely overturned it.
Really?
Yes, and this is one of the most thrilling intersections of science and theology you will ever come across. The discoveries of the 20th century, specifically quantum mechanics at the subatomic level and chaos theory at the macroscopic level, revealed that the universe is not a rigid clockwork machine at all.
Okay, you're going to have to explain that to me because when you say quantum mechanics, my brain immediately wants to shut down and go back to fideism.
I get that. It sounds intimidating.
It does. How does quantum mechanics kill the clockwork universe?
I'll keep it simple. Remember how the Newtonian view said that if you know a particle's position and speed, you can predict exactly where it will go? Quantum mechanics, specifically Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, discovered that at the deepest, most fundamental level of reality, you actually cannot know both the position and the momentum of a particle at the same time.
Wait, really?
Yes. It isn't just that our microscopes aren't strong enough. It is a fundamental feature of reality. The subatomic world is not strictly deterministic. It operates on probabilities.
So at the very bottom, the building blocks of the universe are kind of fuzzy. They aren't locked into a rigid track.
Exactly. I mean, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
At its fundamental levels, the universe is unpredictable. It possesses a built-in openness.
Okay.
And then you scale up to the macroscopic level with chaos theory.
Like the butterfly effect.
Yes. Chaos theory shows that in highly complex systems, like weather patterns or fluid dynamics, infinitesimally small, unmeasurable changes at the beginning can lead to vastly different, unpredictable outcomes later on.
Like a literal butterfly.
Well, the famous example is that a butterfly flapping its wings in Brazil really could set off a cascade of atmospheric changes that result in a tornado in Texas.
That is wild.
What this means is that the universe is lawful. It isn't random, chaotic nonsense, but it is contingent and elusive. It is fundamentally open to the future.
Polkinghorne has a great quote in the text about this. He says, "The world is not just a piece of clockwork machinery, it has a flexibility built into it."
Yes.
But wait, are you saying God is just hiding in quantum randomness? Like, he's just tweaking subatomic particles when we aren't looking?
No, and that is a crucial distinction. We aren't saying God is a quantum mechanic pulling levers behind the curtain.
Okay, good.
We are saying that the physical nature of the universe itself is an open system. It is dynamic. And why is that thrilling for a Christian?
Why?
Because it shatters the deistic prison. If the universe has a built-in flexibility and openness, then it provides the conceptual room for divine providence, for answered prayer, and for miracles to happen within the open grain of nature, rather than violently violating it.
So God doesn't have to break the laws of physics to act in the world. He designed the laws of physics to be responsive to his will.
Yes. He interacts with a dynamic, open creation, not a sterile, closed machine. He guides the unfolding of events.
This directly attacks something the source material warns about, which is the God of the gaps fallacy. Can you explain what that is and why it's such a dangerous trap for Christians to fall into?
The God of the gaps is a lazy theological habit.
Oh, okay.
It happens when we encounter a scientific mystery, something we currently can't explain, and we immediately say, science can't explain that, therefore God did it.
Right.
God becomes the default explanation for our ignorance. For centuries, people didn't know what caused lightning, so they said God was throwing thunderbolts.
Like Zeus?
Exactly. Or someone might say today, I don't know how the intricate structure of the eye evolved, therefore God must have miraculously intervened.
But the problem with that logic is, what happens when a meteorologist explains the static electricity in a storm cloud, or a biologist eventually explains the evolutionary steps of the eye?
Then your God gets squeezed out of a jar. If your God only lives in the dark shadows of what you don't yet understand, then as the light of scientific discovery grows, your God necessarily shrinks.
That makes total sense.
That is why the text quotes Polkinghorne saying, "The God who is truly dead is the God of the gaps." We are warned not to limit God to the unexplained mysteries. God is not just the author of the miraculous anomaly, he's the author of the everyday law.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let me push back gently on this.
Sure.
Because as a Christian, sometimes I like the God of the gaps.
You like the mysteries.
I do. I like the spectacular miracles. If God isn't just in the gaps or the unexplained, rule-breaking events, aren't we saying he's just in the mundane, everyday gravity and chemistry? Doesn't that make him seem, I don't know, less magical, less spectacular?
It feels that way, yeah.
Right. If God is just the reason the kettle boils according to the standard laws of thermodynamics, doesn't that strip away the awe?
That is a very natural human reaction, but I would argue it's actually the exact opposite.
Okay, tell me why.
Think about it this way. If we only see God in the bizarre, unexplainable interruptions of nature, we are treating him like a cosmic magician, doing occasional parlor tricks to prove he's still there.
Right.
But if God is the sustainer of the mundane, then every single breath you take is a continuous, profound miracle of his sustaining grace.
Oh, wow.
The fact that gravity works consistently every day isn't boring. It is a massive manifestation of God's absolute, unwavering faithfulness.
Because he's keeping it going.
Exactly. He is holding the very fabric of reality together second by second. His constant, faithful, sustaining power is far more glorious, far more terrifyingly beautiful than an occasional magic trick.
That's a great way to put it.
It means you are swimming in an ocean of divine grace every single moment of your life, even when you are just watching a leaf fall to the ground.
I never thought of it that way. It turns the ordinary into something sacred.
It really does.
And that built-in flexibility we talked about earlier, it means your prayers actually matter. History is not locked in a deterministic vice. When you pray for healing or for wisdom or for intervention, you aren't asking God to break a rigid machine. You are communicating with the active sovereign of an open universe.
It changes how you view your own agency, too. But this leads us to a massive philosophical question.
Which is?
If the universe is flexible, open, and fundamentally unpredictable at its core, Why isn't it just a chaotic, swirling mess?
Right. If things aren't locked in, why doesn't everything just fall apart? Why can we still use math to map the stars or build bridges?
Exactly.
This brings us to a fascinating point in the source material, the miracle of intelligibility. The text gives us this fantastic quote from Polkinghorne. He says, "The intelligibility of the world is a non-trivial fact about it. The universe didn't have to be rational."
A non-trivial fact. I love the British understatement
It's
there.
very British.
What he means is, it is an absolute marvel that we take for granted every day.
Yeah.
We wake up and we expect mathematics to work today just like it did yesterday.
Yeah.
We expect the laws of physics to apply here on Earth just as they do in the Andromeda Galaxy. But philosophically, there is absolutely no reason why that has to be the case.
Really?
None. The universe could have been a chaotic, unpredictable soup where the rules change every 5 minutes.
Or even if the universe was orderly, we human beings might only have developed the mental capacity to find food, build a fire, and run away from predators.
That is a crucial point.
Because if our brains are purely the product of unguided, blind evolutionary mechanics aimed solely at survival, why in the world do we possess the neurological equipment to understand abstract quantum physics, or the geometry of black holes, or the mathematical beauty of string theory?
Right.
Knowing the mass of a quark does not help you escape a saber-toothed tiger or gather berries.
Exactly. It's like finding out the entire universe is written in a highly complex language, and somehow you were born already knowing how to read the grammar.
That's a great analogy.
The human mind's ability to understand the deep structure of the cosmos vastly exceeds what is necessary for mere survival.
So why is it there?
Well, there is a staggering, almost eerie resonance between the rational structure of our minds and the rational structure of the universe out there. Albert Einstein, who was not an orthodox believer, once famously said that the most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible.
So why do so many modern secular thinkers just shrug that off? Why do they take the understandability of the universe for granted rather than seeing it as the ultimate evidence that there is a mind behind it all?
Because to admit that the universe is profoundly, deeply intelligible is to invite the question of the intellect that made it so.
Ah, I see.
And that brings us to one of the most majestic concepts in Christian theology, which Polkinghorne relies on heavily to explain this resonance. It is the Greek concept of the logos.
The logos. I know you find that term right at the very beginning of the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word.
Yes,
Mhm.
John 1:1-3. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Through him all things were made.
Right.
The Greek term translated as word there is logos. Now, to the ancient Greek philosophers, the logos was the abstract principle of reason and order. It was a cosmic logic that kept the universe from falling into chaos.
But the Apostle John takes that Greek philosophical idea and does something completely radical with it.
Unbelievably radical. He takes this concept of the logos, this divine cosmic logic, and he essentially says to the Greeks, you know that order you see in the universe? That logic is not an abstract impersonal force.
Okay.
That logic is a person, and his name is Jesus Christ. And he became flesh and dwelt among us.
Wow.
The reason the universe makes sense, the reason mathematics works, the reason physics is elegant and beautiful is because the universe is structured by the mind of Christ.
That is staggering. There's another incredible passage that connects to this, Colossians 1:1, scene 17. It says that all things were created by him and for him, and in him all things hold together.
Let's look at the Greek word used there for hold together. It is synestaken.
Synestaken.
Yes. It means to cohere, to consist,
Yeah.
to be actively preserved or held intact.
Okay.
And grammatically, it is in the perfect tense in Greek, which implies a past action with an ongoing continuous reality in the present.
So it's happening right now.
Right now. Christ is actively sustaining the cosmos right now. He is the gravitational glue. He's the subatomic coherency. The laws of nature are not independent rules that exist on their own. They are the faithful habits of the Creator.
I really want the listener to grasp the devotional application of this. Think about what this means for your Monday morning.
It changes everything.
The fact that we can do math, science, and logic is not a cosmic accident. It is a direct reflection of the Creator's wisdom. The rational transparency of the physical universe is an invitation from God to know Him.
Yes, exactly.
It means that when you are sitting in a classroom trying to understand a complex equation, or when you are trying to figure out how to balance your company's budget, or when you are learning how a plant performs photosynthesis, you are actually tracing the very thoughts of Christ.
You are deciphering the logos.
Let your intellectual pursuits become acts of worship. When you finally grasp a new concept, your reaction shouldn't just be pride in your own brain power. It should be, Lord, your mind is beautiful.
It elevates the intellect to a holy vocation. It honors God when we use the minds he gave us to explore the world he made.
But this incredibly high view of humanity that we have minds capable of reading the code of the cosmos brings us to a fierce battleground in modern thought.
Oh, it certainly does.
Because not everyone agrees that our minds are that special. If the universe is rationally ordered by Christ, what is humanity's specific place within that order?
This is where Polkinghorne mounts a staunch, brilliant defense against what philosophers call ontological reductionism.
Hold on, ontological reductionism, what does that actually mean in plain English?
Sure, ontology is the study of being, or what things actually are. Ontological reductionism is the secular, materialist idea that human beings are nothing more than physical matter.
Just atoms.
Right. It claims that your consciousness, your sense of right and wrong, your profound love for your children, and your religious experiences are just chemical illusions.
That is so dark.
They are generated by your brain solely to help you survive and pass on your DNA.
So all my deepest feelings are just biological tricks.
In this view, yes, they are what philosophers call epiphenomena.
Epiphenomena.
An epiphenomena is a byproduct of a physical process that has no real meaning or causal power of its own. It's like the shadow cast by a moving car.
Okay, I can picture that.
The shadow doesn't affect the car's engine, it's just a meaningless byproduct. Reductionists view human consciousness the same way.
The text specifically calls out Francis Crick regarding this. He was the famous co-discoverer of the DNA double helix, right?
Yes, Crick was an undeniably brilliant scientist, but he held a fiercely reductionist worldview. He wrote a book proposing what he called the astonishing hypothesis.
What was the hypothesis?
He basically said, your joys and your sorrows, your memories and your ambitions, your sense of personal identity and free will are in fact no more than the behavior of a vast assembly of nerve cells and their associated molecules.
So just a meat machine.
Exactly. That is a logical conclusion. And Polkinghorne attacks Crick's thesis head-on.
Good.
The source text quotes Polkinghorne saying something incredibly perceptive. He says, if Crick's thesis is true, we could never know it. For not only does it relegate our experiences of beauty, moral obligation, and religious encounter to the epiphenomenal scrap heap, it also destroys rationality.
I love that phrase, the epiphenomenal scrap heap. It sounds like a dystopian junkyard for the human soul.
It really does.
But explain that last part. Why does Crick's view destroy rationality itself?
It's a brilliant philosophical judo move by Polkinghorne. He points out the fatal internal contradiction in the materialist argument. Okay, let's hear it.
Think about it. If my brain is nothing but a collection of atoms reacting according to blind, deterministic laws of chemistry, then my thoughts are just chemical reactions. They are no more true or false than a chemical fizzing in a beaker or baking soda mixing with vinegar.
Okay, I follow that.
But if my thoughts are just blind chemical reactions, then the thought reductionism is also just a blind chemical reaction.
Yeah.
Therefore, I have no objective reason to trust it. You cannot use reason to argue that reason doesn't exist.
That is brilliant.
It's like cutting off the branch you were sitting on while trying to argue that the tree isn't real. If Crick is right, then his own scientific theories are just the meaningless fizzing of his own neurons.
Whoa. So the whole secular argument collapses under its own weight. It is ultimately suicidal to thought itself.
It really is. Contrast that bleak, self-defeating worldview with the biblical worldview found in Genesis 1.26:27.
Which says,
God says, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness." Humanity is created in the imago Dei, the image of God. Now, to be fair to the science, Polkinghorne acknowledges that we do have biological continuity with creation. Right. We are made of the dust of the earth. We share DNA with the rest of the biological world.
absolutely. We are part of the physical system. Polkinghorne isn't denying evolutionary biology or genetics.
Okay.
But the imago Dei means we possess a unique, transcendent dignity that cannot be reduced to biology. We are matter. But we are matter breathed upon by the Spirit of God.
We are more than the sum of our parts.
We have a spiritual dimension that transcends our mere material constitution. That is why our consciousness is real. That is why our moral obligations are not illusions. That is why our capacity to commune with God is a genuine encounter with reality, not just a neurological glitch.
So what does this all mean for our daily relationships? Think about it. Society is constantly bombarding you with the message that you are just a highly evolved animal, a collection of atoms driven by instinct.
It's everywhere.
If you believe the reductionist view, then loving your spouse is just a biological urge to release oxytocin. Sacrificing for your kids is just a selfish evolutionary strategy to ensure your genetic line continues.
Which completely strips the nobility and the self-giving beauty out of love. It makes every act of sacrifice secretly selfish.
But embracing the Imago Dei practically revolutionizes how we treat our neighbors and loved ones. When you look your spouse in the eye, or when you are rocking your baby to sleep at 2 a.m., or even when you are dealing with a difficult, frustrating coworker, you are not interacting with a biological automaton.
No, you aren't.
You are interacting with an eternal soul stamped with the image of the creator of the universe. Your deepest longings for justice when you see poverty, your overwhelming experience of awe when you hear a beautiful symphony, your profound hunger for God, they are not chemical tricks.
They are real.
They are real. They are the fingerprints of God on your heart.
It restores the weight of glory to human existence. You are a biological creature, certainly, but you are a biological creature destined for eternity.
And because we bear God's image in this unique way, we are equipped among all creation to look out at the universe and actually respond to it. So how are we supposed to look at nature? What is a Christian's proper relationship to the physical world?
Polkinghorne advocates for a revival of what is known as natural theology.
Natural theology.
Now, historically, some thinkers tried to use natural theology as a set of airtight, coercive logical proofs to force atheists to believe in God. They thought they could prove God's existence the way you prove a geometry theorem, leaving the skeptic no escape.
But Polkinghorne doesn't think that works, does he? People always find a way to argue.
He doesn't view natural theology as a weapon to win arguments and bludgeon atheists.
Right.
Instead, he sees it as an interpretive framework. It provides the most satisfying, comprehensive explanation for the universe as we actually experience it.
So it's more about making sense of things.
Yes. It is about looking at the beauty, the rational order, the sheer fruitfulness of the cosmos, and saying the most elegant, intellectually responsible explanation for all of this is a purposeful creator. It makes sense of the world in a way that atheism simply cannot.
And this is deeply rooted in the biblical texts regarding general revelation. We can see this vividly in Psalm 19.1-2. The heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech, night after night they reveal knowledge.
It's poetry, but it's also profound truth.
You know the Hebrew behind this. Can you unpack it for us?
The Hebrew word used for glory in that verse is kabod.
Kabod.
It literally means weight, heaviness, splendor, or manifest presence. It is not just a light, airy, superficial prettiness. When the Bible talks about God's glory, it means the universe possesses a weighty, overwhelming majesty that commands your awe.
Like it physically impacts you.
Exactly. And the word for skies or firmament is rakia, which refers to the vast expanse of the heavens. So the vast physical expanse of the universe is actively communicating the heavy, majestic presence of God.
I love the idea of kabod being heavy. Like when you stand next to a towering mountain or stare into the Grand Canyon, you feel a physical weight of awe in your chest.
You feel small, but in a good way.
Exactly. The Apostle Paul picks this up in the New Testament in Romans 1:08-20. He says that since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made.
Paul uses the Greek word aorata for invisible qualities.
Aorata.
It is a beautiful paradox. The visible, tangible, physical things of the world are the exact instruments that reveal the invisible, spiritual realities of God. Creation is not merely a passive backdrop for human history to play out on. It is an active signpost.
Think of the analogy of admiring a beautiful painting. When you stand in a museum and look at a masterpiece, you don't praise the canvas. You don't write poetry about the oil paint. You praise the painter who arranged the canvas and the paint in such a brilliant way. Nature prepares the heart for worship.
Beautifully said.
When you look at the stars through a telescope, or you examine the complexity of a microscopic cell, the awe you feel is meant to point you upward. Nature prepares the heart, but it is special revelation, the scriptures, that introduces you to the Savior. The stars can tell you God is incredibly powerful, but only the Bible can tell you God loves you enough to die for you.
That is the perfect balance. Natural theology brings you to the threshold of awe. Revealed theology brings you into the sanctuary of grace.
But let me raise a pastoral concern here. In our modern world, we spend 90% of our time looking at screens, concrete, asphalt, and drywall.
It's true.
We don't see the rakia. Most people live in cities where light pollution hides the stars entirely. Are we spiritually starving ourselves by being so disconnected from the physical creation?
I believe we absolutely are. We are suffering from an acute deficit of natural awe. We are locking ourselves in artificial environments of our own making, and because of that, we start to subtly believe that human beings are the ultimate creators and masters of reality.
Wow, that's a dangerous mindset.
Very dangerous. When you stand on the edge of the ocean and listen to the waves, or walk through an ancient forest, or gaze at a dark sky full of stars, it right-sizes you. It humbles you. It forces you to realize you are not the center of the universe.
So we need to get outside more.
I would strongly encourage anyone listening to this to intentionally carve out time to be in nature. Not to worship nature, that is pantheism, but to marvel at the craftsmanship of your Father. Let the physical world reawaken your sense of kabod, the weighty glory of God.
That is such a vital practice. It recalibrates the soul.
Yeah.
Now, when we do look at the sky, we realize how tiny we are. When we look at this incredible universe and we try to describe the God who made it, we run into a major problem.
What's the problem?
Our human language falls short. The reality is too big for our words. How do scientists and believers communicate profound truths when the subjects are so vast and beyond our full comprehension?
The source text gives us a fascinating insight from Polkinghorne here. He says, the fundamental tool of science is the metaphor, and the same is true of theology.
Now, a lot of people might be surprised to hear that science relies on metaphor. We tend to think of science as just hard numbers, literal facts, and objective data.
It certainly relies on numbers and data, but when scientists try to grasp and explain unseen physical realities, they have to use models, which are essentially metaphors.
Can you give an example?
Sure. For example, when scientists first tried to explain the structure of an atom in the early 20th century, they used the solar system model. They said, imagine the nucleus is the sun in the center, and the electrons are like little planets orbiting around it.
I remember learning that in school.
Right. Now, is an atom literally a tiny solar system? No. Electrons behave very differently than planets. But the metaphor was a necessary tool to grasp a reality that is beyond our direct sensory experience. It was a truthful approximation.
And as quantum mechanics developed, they had to use new metaphors, right? Like describing light as both a wave and a particle, even though in our everyday experience, something can't be both at the same time.
Yes. Science requires deep intellectual humility because it recognizes that reality is richer, stranger, and more complex than our everyday human language can easily capture. Neither science nor theology possesses exhaustive certainty.
So they both have to keep learning.
Exactly. Both disciplines must be open to correction and deeper understanding as they explore the reality before them.
And God, in his infinite wisdom, knows our limitations. He condescends to our finite human minds by giving us theological metaphors in Scripture to help us grasp his nature. The Bible says God is our shepherd, God is our rock, God is a fortress, God is a father.
Those are powerful metaphors.
But let me ask for a vital clarification here, because this can be a stumbling block. If a skeptic on the internet hears someone say, theology uses metaphor, they might immediately jump on that and say, aha, see? That means the Bible is just a collection of nice, made-up poems. It's just a myth. It's not objectively true.
Right. They dismiss it completely.
How do we explain that a theological metaphor is a factual, truthful description of reality and not just a pleasant myth?
That is a crucial distinction to make. A metaphor in theology is not a fairy tale. It is a linguistic bridge pointing to a concrete reality.
Okay, a linguistic bridge.
When the Bible calls God a rock, it is obviously not saying God is made of physical granite. It is communicating a factual, objective truth about God's character. He is unshakable, he is reliable, he is a foundation you can build your life upon, he is a shelter in a storm.
So it's describing his actual attributes.
Yes. The metaphor points to an objective reality that is actually greater and more solid than physical rock. The metaphor doesn't dilute the truth. It is the only vehicle capable of carrying the massive weight of the truth into our finite minds.
The metaphor points to a reality greater than the words themselves. So devotionally, these biblical metaphors are incredibly precious. They aren't just intellectual puzzles to solve.
No, they are meant to be experienced.
Think about it. When your intellect is overwhelmed by the vastness of the cosmos, When you realize the observable universe is 93 billion light years across, and you feel incredibly small and insignificant, your soul can rest in the metaphor of God as a loving father.
That's beautiful.
You don't have to be able to do quantum calculus to know him. The metaphor bypasses our intellectual pride and draws us into sweet personal intimacy.
It's the beauty of divine condescension. The God who sustains the galaxies stoops down to speak to us in the language of sheep, rocks, and family dynamics so that we can truly know him and relate to him.
So we have the language, we have the framework of one world. Let's look at the entire timeline to pull this all together. Where did this one world come from and where is it going?
Polkinghorne places a massive emphasis on the classic Christian doctrine of creation. He asserts that the universe is contingent.
Meaning it relies on something else.
Right. It didn't have to exist. It isn't eternal. It relies entirely on God's free, sovereign act of creation out of nothing, which theologians call creatio ex nihilo.
Let's go to the very first verse of the Bible, Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. You've got the Hebrew for this, right?
Yes. The Hebrew phrase is Bereshit bara Elohim. The key word to focus on there is bara.
What's special about bara?
Bara is a fascinating Hebrew verb. In the entirety of the Old Testament, God is the only grammatical subject ever attached to the verb bara.
Really?
Humans can make things, form things, build things from pre-existing materials,
Yeah.
but only God can bara. It signifies his unique, effortless creative activity, calling existence out of non-existence by his sheer will.
So the universe is not a piece of God that broke off, and it's not some pre-existing eternal lump of clay that God just came along and rearranged. He spoke it into being from nothing.
Correct. And because God is the sovereign author of the beginning, he is also the author of the end.
Right.
We must contrast the physical beginning of the universe with its ultimate theological destiny. And for Polkinghorne, and for Orthodox Christianity, the decisive theological event that guarantees the future is the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
The resurrection is the hinge of history. The Apostle Paul stakes everything on the physical, bodily resurrection of Jesus in 1 Corinthians 15. He says, if Christ isn't raised, our faith is useless.
Polkinghorne makes a very careful, vital distinction here regarding how science and theology look at events.
What's the distinction?
Science studies repeatable natural processes. It studies the normative way the world works day in and day out. But the resurrection is not a repeatable natural process.
Definitely not.
It is not just a medical anomaly or a revivable corpse. It is a completely unique, redemptive act of God. It is the beginning of the new creation breaking into the middle of our present history.
This is so important because it contrasts sharply with the secular view of the future.
Oh, massively.
If you ask an atheistic physicist what the ultimate destiny of the universe is, the answer is incredibly grim. They will tell you about the second law of thermodynamics, which is entropy.
Yeah, the universe is winding down.
They believe that eventually, billions of years from now, the stars will burn out, the galaxies will drift apart, and the universe will end in a state of maximum entropy called the heat death, or the big freeze. Every star goes dark. Everything dies forever. It's the ultimate reductionist nightmare.
Or conversely, you have some secularists who place all their hope in human technology, believing that scientific progress, artificial intelligence, or colonizing other planets will somehow save us from death and entropy.
But the Christian hope is entirely different. Our hope does not rest in human technology, nor are we doomed to the heat death of the universe. Our hope rests in the resurrected Son of God.
The biblical story ends in Revelation 21 and 22. And this is a huge point. It does not end with humans escaping the physical creation as disembodied spirits floating on clouds playing harps.
Right.
It ends with God bringing a new heaven and a new earth. God renews the physical creation.
Wait, so if our ultimate destiny is a new physical earth with resurrected physical bodies, how does that completely flip the script on the idea that spiritual things are good and physical things are bad?
That idea that the physical world is bad, dirty, or a prison, and the spirit is pure, is actually an ancient heresy called Gnosticism.
So it's not biblical at all.
It is not biblical Christianity. Biblical Christianity says matter matters. God created the physical world and called it very good. The Son of God took on physical flesh in the incarnation. He rose in a physical body, and he promises to redeem the physical cosmos.
So the physical world isn't thrown away.
The ultimate destiny of the universe is not destruction, but transformation and renewal. Polkinghorne's one-world theology reaches its climax here. The physical and the spiritual will be perfectly, eternally united in the new creation.
What a breathtaking journey we have been on today. We set out to shatter the wall between the Sunday soul and the Monday intellect, and John Polkinghorne's insights do exactly that.
Let's briefly recap where we have been. We explored the one-world reality, the truth that science and theology are partners exploring the exact same creation.
Yep.
We saw the death of the clockwork universe, replaced by a flexible, dynamic cosmos sustained by the Lodos, Jesus Christ. We dismantled the reductionist lie and reclaimed the profound dignity of the Imago Dei.
We did.
We admired the beauty of natural theology, learning to read the cosmos as a signpost pointing to God. And finally, we anchored our ultimate hope, not in scientific progress, but in the bodily resurrection of Christ and the promise of a new creation.
You never need to fear the honest pursuit of truth. Every discovery, every law of nature, every mathematical formula is just a glimpse into the mind of your Father.
It's incredible.
Before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to mull over. We talked about how Jesus Christ is actively, literally holding the physical universe together right now by the word of his power, sin is taken.
Right.
If that is true, if he is actively sustaining the cells in your own body, the dirt in your garden, the air in your lungs, how does that change how you treat your physical health, your need for rest, and the natural environment around you?
That's a challenging thought.
If matter matters this much to God, if he's actively holding it together, then stewarding our physical bodies and our earth isn't just a secular chore. It's a profound daily act of worship to the sustainer of the cosmos.
It transforms everything from what we eat to how we sleep, to how we care for creation. It is all holy ground.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Our hope is that the invisible wall in your mind has been brought down. The tension between Sunday worship and Monday work is gone. Keep exploring, keep marveling at the incredible creation around you, and keep loving the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. Until next time.